After training over 1,000 freight brokers in my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program, my coaching program, I'm going to share with you 5 mistakes stopping you from getting your first shipping client. These are mistakes that I see, recurring and common mistakes that I see new and even established freight brokers making when it comes to trying to get clients. All right. So I'm going to share with you. Here's my notes. I'm going to share this with you today. We're going to walk through this. And then at the end, we're going to do live Q&A. Okay. So here we go. Number 1 on the list. And this is one that drives me absolutely crazy. They're using outdated, old school, generic sales scripts in order to try to get shippers. I've talked about this before. I can't talk about it enough. There are several old school, outdated sales scripts that shippers have heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And what happens is when they recognize that pattern, when they hear that script, it automatically triggers a negative response. And so therefore, you never get an opportunity to build rapport. You never get an opportunity to ask any questions. You never get an opportunity to find any need. And therefore, those calls end very quickly, typically in the first 30 to 60 seconds of the call. You're being dismissed or you're being hit over the head with these objections. And you're never able to get to the next stage, which is the most important component in order to move that sale forward, okay? The 3 scripts that I hear all the time. Hey, we've got trucks in your area all the time. I thought we might be able to move some of your loads, or some facsimile of that. You've probably heard it before. It's been around for 20, 30 years or more, okay? It was around before I became a freight broker back in 2003, and it was bad then. It's only worse now. Number 2, hey, we're a freight broker. We can save you some money on your freight. The problem with that is everybody says that, and now you've painted yourself in a corner, and you've got to be the cheapest. If you're not the cheapest, you're not going to get the business. That's a no-win game. And then number 3 is, hey, we've got a network of over X amount of trucks, 1,000 trucks or 5,000 trucks or 10,000 trucks, whatever they say. You know, we've got a network of lots of trucks, and we'd like to help you move your freight. Those 3 pitches, those 3 cold call scripts, those 3 entries and cold outreach strategies are outdated, and you have to stop using them. Okay. I promise you, all you're doing is, luck and hope are not winning strategies. You've got to have a real system. You've got to understand how to get your prospects' attention. You need to learn how to gather sales intelligence to create a compelling sales hook. You need to understand your specific niche, and you need to understand how to create a compelling sales hook in order to get your prospect's attention, because the first 5 seconds of that call is the most important. If you don't differentiate yourself in those first 5 to 10 seconds, there's a high probability you're going to start getting some rejection right away. Okay. So number 1, they're using generic scripts. They don't understand how to create a compelling sales hook. All right. That's number 1. Number 2, this is a huge one. They talk too fast, or they talk too much, or both. Okay. So a lot of people that are new in freight broker sales have a tendency to talk too fast. Okay. And what happens is when you talk too fast, here's what you have to remember. A confused mind makes no decision, or it becomes a negative decision. So for example, if you talk real fast, you get on the phone and you talk real fast and they don't understand you, all of a sudden, their default answer is going to be no. Confusion creates negative outcomes. So you don't want to confuse them, particularly at the very beginning, at any time during the sales process, but at the very beginning, when you're just building some momentum, they have to understand you. So talking too fast is a very common problem, especially when it comes to your cold call opening. All right. And then talking too much, right? When you dominate the conversation, when you're talking 80% of the time and your prospect is giving you 1-word responses or 1-word answers back, that's a surefire way to fail, right? So you need to start a real dialogue. You need to have a 2-way conversation. You need to understand how to ask good questions, pause, and look for that positive feedback or negative feedback so that you can then adjust your strategy and start moving that sale forward, right? So talking too fast and talking too much is another huge mistake. Number one, you need to slow down. Number two, you need to learn how to ask good questions that starts a dialogue, right? All right, so listen, that's number two. But I want you to stick around. Make sure you stick around for number five, because this is an absolute critical one. These are all important, but if you don't get past number five, you're never going to get out of the gates and you're sure to fail as a freight broker or freight agent. So stick around for number five. All right, number three, they don't practice cold calling or overcoming objections. They think that they can just get on the phone and ad lib, or they think that they can just pull some generic script offline and then read it off a piece of paper. You can't do that, people. Here's the reality. You need to practice your cold calls. You need to practice overcoming objections. And the two best ways to do that are my favorite is role playing with a friend or a colleague or a spouse or somebody, your partner, whoever it is, role playing back and forth on your cold call opening and role playing how to overcome the most common sales objections. If the more role playing you do, the more confidence and competence you will have when you start making those live sales calls. That's my favorite way to do it, role playing. Number two is you need to record yourself. Now, I would record the role-playing sessions, but even if I couldn't role play, I would record myself doing my cold call openings. I would record myself overcoming these objections, and I would listen to myself, because trust me when I tell you, when I do these lives and I record these, and then I go back and I listen to them later, things seem very, very different, and they will with your sales calls as well. And so what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to critique yourself. Maybe you're talking a little too fast. Maybe you're talking a little too slow. Maybe you're not putting pauses in there. Maybe you're not fully understanding, or following the frameworks for overcoming those common sales objections, right? So that's a huge one, right? They don't practice their cold call and they don't practice overcoming sales objections, right? Number four, they don't know how to disarm the prospect that just gave them some friction, that just gave them some sort of objection, right? So there's objection handling, and a big part of that is learning how to disarm your prospect, right? So for example, you call up a prospect, hey, Joe, we've got trucks in your area, the old negative response. Hey, I was wondering if we might be able to move some of your freight. And they automatically say, hey, listen, we're happy with our current provider. So what happens is the sales rep will then pretty much tuck their tail and say, oh, sorry about that. And then they'll just hang up, right? That's a very common theme that you'll see when you get an early objection. But what you have to understand is you need to understand how to disarm your prospect, right? And my favorite way to do that is simply this, right? And and actually, I'm going to give you a link where you can download a script that'll actually walk you through this. But this is how to overcome your sales objections, which is disarming. And the script is really simple. It's something like, Joe, I'm not sure I can even help you. So first, please understand that I'm not here to try to replace your current broker or your current carriers. That's not why I made the call. But I might be able to help identify some gaps where we would be able to help you. So now is obviously not a good time. You're very busy, but would you be opposed to scheduling a quick call? And so now see what I've done with that disarming? What I've done is if they've been working with a broker or a carrier for 5 or 10 or 15 years, and that's sometimes the case, they become very protective of that relationship. And so sometimes when they think you're trying to come in and unseat the incumbent that's been there for years and that they're loyal to, that creates friction, right? That creates a negative friction inside the sale. So you need to learn how to disarm them, okay? And if you guys want that disarming script and you want to learn how to do that, all you got to do is go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret, right? Secrets. I think it's secret, right? Let me just take a quick look at it. Yeah, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/secret. You can actually download that entire script, all right? So that's number 4. And then number 5, last but not least, and this is the one that gets in a lot of people's way, especially when you're talking about freight broker startups, freight agency startups, and people that are struggling to just get their first shipper. And that is fear. Fear holds them back and causes them to fail because they don't tell their story to enough people. Meaning, what'll happen is this. They'll come in, they'll make a handful of calls, they'll get some rejection, and then that rejection, right, causes them to clam up, and then they fail to take enough action. They fail to tell their story and reach out to enough people in order to allow the numbers to start working in their favor. Now, what is the fear of? The number one fear is the fear of failure, okay? The fear of failure is very common in sales, whether you're a W-2 or whether you're independent or an entrepreneur, whatever it is. The fear of failure is real. I don't care if it's sales or otherwise, right? People don't want to fail. But what you have to understand as an entrepreneur in particular, and in the sales role as an entrepreneur, right, as a freight broker or freight agent, what you have to understand is that failing is a requirement. You are going to fail. You're going to fail frequently and you're going to fail often. But that's not the final destination. What you have to understand is that you're here, success is here, and in order to get from where you are now to success, you've got to go through that failure. You've got to have those failures. It's not, the final destination, but the fact is it's actually part of the road that you're going to have to travel, and you've got to embrace that. So you got to understand and learn how to embrace those mini failures, right? And just because someone told you no, number one, that doesn't mean it's no forever. And number two, that's not the end of the game. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of companies out there that you can reach out to. And the fact is, in order to build a 7-figure income as a freight broker, freight agent, you really only need about 5 or 10 clients that are loyal to you. And I'm not talking about big clients. I'm talking about small to medium-sized clients, and you're earning a 6-figure income. So that fear of failure is a big one. The other one is the fear of what people might say, right? The fear of what somebody might say, particularly, family and friends, or maybe it's the prospect themselves, right? You've got the fear of what somebody might say, right? So that will hold people back. And that's part of that fear equation. And that's why I listed it as number 5. Now, there are tons of other sales mistakes that people make. And there are tons of other things that we cover in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program that I've been talking about. Again, we've trained over 1,000 students through that program, and we've had some amazing success stories. We've got some insane feedback from all of our students. And so if you guys want to get on the wait list for that Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. That is the 8-week live coaching program where I personally coach and mentor you. I take that piece of my brain, everything I know about my freight broker sales system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. I transplant it into your head. I teach you that system. I help you implement it inside your business. And then by the end of those 8 weeks, the goal is for you to start doing business with your first shippers. And that's the secret to the whole deal, right? Is that it's coaching. It's not just an online course. It's not just a video, but I'm actually coaching and mentoring you. And again, that program is sold out right now, but you got to get on the wait list, because if you get on the wait list, you'll be notified the next time spots open up. And when spots open up, they fill up fast. And so get on that wait list. It's not a free program. It's not a cheap program, but you'll get a huge ROI if you follow my system and let me coach you through the early success as a freight broker or freight agent when it comes to getting shippers.